What's going on, everybody? Good late afternoon or early evening for some of you. And it's time that we move towards wrapping up this segment that I've been doing on my channel, this little series of previewing the 2025 NFL Draft. We've been going position by position for a little bit here. We only have a few left. I'd like to get this done before the Seahawks season starts. So today we've got linebacker, specifically off-ball linebacker. This is your Mike. This is your Will. Maybe it's your Sam. These are the guys who typically get a lot of tackles. These are the guys who typically call your defense. They got the green dot a lot. And honestly, this is a position the Seahawks should probably be paying very close attention to in this draft because you look at the current state of the Seahawks roster. You've got two starters, and they're both on the final year of their deal because they both signed one-year deals. So they could both be gone next year, especially if they play well. There's not going to be a lot of money next year. Once you get past that, you've got Tyrese Knight. Okay, he's a rookie. You're feeling pretty good about him right now. He had a really good preseason, but that's one guy. And then after that, you're down to Drake Thomas and Pat O'Connell, and you lost John Radigan. Like, this is a position you might need to attack very aggressively in 2025. I don't know about a first-round pick, but I wouldn't rule it out. And second round pick, once you get down there, this is going to be a high priority, I think, because this is not a position you want to spend a ton of money on. In the modern NFL, I think that we've gotten to the point now where if you spend big money on off-ball linebacker, that's not a good investment. So your best bet is usually to spend good draft capital because you're still not spending big money. If you take a linebacker at the end of the first or the start of the second round, that's not anything that is all that bad. That's not anything that is going to cost you a lot of money because those contracts are still pretty cheap and you're still getting good players at that rate. But that's still better than going to free agency where you're going to be spending a lot more on veterans. And I think that's going to be the new meta. And honestly, I think it's been the meta for a little while. If you look at off-ball linebacker charts on Spotrac or Over the Cap, there will be like 3 or 4, maybe 5 guys that make a ton of money per year, and then everyone else just completely falls off a cliff to like half what the top guys make. Like the top guy makes 20, there are a couple guys who make like 19, 18 million a year, and then it goes down to like 14 and then 10 and then it goes from there. So this is not a position you want to spend the big bucks on. So constantly bringing in good rookies to start at linebacker for you is really, really valuable, I believe. So we're going to focus in on basically the top 4 off-ball linebackers as of now. So understand that off-ball linebacker distinctions are not quite what they used to be. Mostly, I feel like Micah Parsons was like the pioneer of this, but we're starting to see that more and more often lately, and Harold Perkins is a great example of that. LSU linebacker. He's played there for a couple years now. This is obviously going to be a big year for him. But throughout his career so far, he has made his mark largely as an edge rusher. Had 7.5 sacks 2 years ago, 5.5 last year. Makes a lot of plays in the backfield, averages about a tackle for loss per game. Deadly lined up as an edge rusher. He's got bend and he's got first step quickness. So he's a legitimate edge rusher, but he can play almost anywhere. He can play stack linebacker. He can blitz off the A gap or B gap, or up the A gap or B gap, I guess I should say. He can cover slot receivers up the field because he's so athletic and quick. So this is going to be like a Micah Parsons kind of situation where during a play that isn't an obvious passing down, he could be doing anything. He could line up on the edge. He could line up over the middle, over the middle, line up as a stack linebacker, line up in slot. But as you approach those obvious passing downs, more and more likely he moves to that edge role. So great athlete, really athletic, knows how to use his hands, understands how to use his hand counters to get offensive linemen off of him. He's got a legitimately skilled set of moves. He's really good at covering a lot of ground. So there's a scenario here where Harold Perkins does become that next Micah Parsons type player. Probably not that good, but it's the same idea here. And as you can see, he's the one linebacker that the mock draft database currently has listed as a first rounder. They have him up at 16. And while that would probably be a little too high for the Seahawks, at least we hope it is, that's going to leave a lot of room for him to be on the table for the Seahawks when they do pick in the first round. And it would be kind of hard to pass this guy up because he gives you so much. He's not just a stack linebacker. And adding the ability to rush off the edge is kind of huge in the modern NFL, where that stack linebacker spot is becoming less valuable, but the edge rusher stuff is becoming more valuable. He is undersized, he is a little bit small, and he gets pushed around by blockers. If a blocker can get on him cleanly, it's really hard for him to get back in the play. He doesn't stack and shed blockers like that typically all that well. And he needs to learn how to diagnose plays better. He spends so much time as an edge rusher. He hasn't really had the chance to pick up the more cerebral parts of playing stack linebacker. So those are some things he needs to work on. But overall, Harold Perkins, definitely the best all-around prospect at the linebacker spot so far. All right, so next guy we're going to look at here is Barrett Carter. We watched this guy a lot last year for Clemson because we thought he was coming out then. He did not. Stayed at Clemson for another year. You can kind of see that he too is a big backfield playmaker, not quite as big as Harold Perkins, but from 2022 to 2023, which were the 2 years that he was basically a full-time starter, had 20 tackles for loss, 9 sacks, 3 interceptions, excuse me, almost 140 tackles. So very prolific player for a Clemson defense that, I mean, you know, they haven't exactly lived up to expectations, but the linebacker part of it with him and Trenton Simpson has been very credible. I mean, Trenton Simpson has gone on to the NFL. Looks like he's going to be successful there. And Barrett Carter is probably going to follow in his footsteps this offseason. Currently ranked as a second-round pick on the database. Very rangy, very good athlete. Wherever he is on the field, he can always close to the ball. Covers a ton of ground. Very, very athletic. And unlike somebody like a Harold Perkins, he's played so much off-ball linebacker. He knows how to dissect plays, knows how to get to the ball, knows how to read what's going on and react to it appropriately. Shoots gaps very well, really good at shooting gaps into the backfield to go make plays. He can blitz up the middle and off the edges, so wherever he lines up, you have to be concerned about him as a blitzer. He's a good mover in space. He has quickness and he has change of direction skills to handle man coverage or zone coverage. He can do both of those things pretty well. He's not a great tackler, and he may never be a great tackler because he has short arms. It's one of those things where the wingspan just isn't really there for him to be able to really take control of snaps like that. So realistically, I think that he's a little bit capped in that area. He's another guy who will get swallowed up by blockers. He doesn't stack and shed. He doesn't have the arm length for it. Doesn't have the strength for it. So if you can get a clean block on him, he's probably going to get driven out of the play. And even though he is a smart dissector of plays, he has a good football IQ, he does bite hard on like play action and misdirection. I do feel like there's a little bit of over-aggressiveness that allows him to get beat because he misreads things and he bites too hard on what he thought he saw. But that may be something that improves this year. It's his 4th year in college, his 3rd year as a full-time starter for that Clemson defense. So Barrett Carter, a little more of a traditional linebacker, although there is still some really nice pass rushing stuff here with him. And yeah, probably going to get some hype as a day 2 pick when the season wraps up, I imagine. So that's the second guy. Next guy is going to be another current second-round projection, according to the database. Another guy I watched quite a bit last year because I thought he might come out last year, Danny Stutsman. So Danny Stutsman of Oklahoma. This is another guy who is a little bit more of a traditional off-ball linebacker. Amassed massive tackle stats for Oklahoma the last 2 years. Over almost 130 tackles, including 26.5 for loss and 6 sacks. So he's a big-time ball hawk. He's a big-time ball magnet, always around the ball, always making stuff happen in the backfield. Averages more than 1 tackle a loss per game he plays. Very versatile as well. He can kind of line up all over the place. Very, very good ability to drop into coverage. Very good ability to move around on a defense and play in different spots. He spent time at Mike, Will, and Sam for that Oklahoma defense. He triggers downhill fast to make plays at the line. Really good at getting into the backfield. His click and close is really, really, really good. He's an excellent cover linebacker. Probably going to end up being the best cover linebacker in this draft when all is said and done because he's just so experienced at it. I mean, you can see that he's got a lot of playing experience the last couple of years. Has made plays on the ball, plenty. Great athlete overall. He's got great tackling technique. He's one of those guys who's really focused on tackling the way you're supposed to tackle. He does have some issues with diagnosing plays and getting tricked. He is so aggressive in gunning downhill. Misdirection can definitely get to him. He doesn't always keep as balanced as you would like in when he's tracking a play. He doesn't shed blockers well either. He is a little bit undersized. He's not necessarily going to be somebody who's able to get off a blocker once the blocker's on him. And I do think that he is overly aggressive as a player, and that's a big reason why he has these monster TFL numbers, because when he's right, but when he's wrong, it can be a big play. So Danny Stutsman, definitely intrigued here, definitely interested, but there is some fear with Stutsman that he might be a limited NFL player, like he might be somebody you want out there on passing downs because he's really good in coverage. He might not be an early down linebacker. He might end up being a nickel linebacker in the NFL. And you would be hard-pressed to justify taking a nickel linebacker in the middle of the second round. So we'll see if he can expand things out a little bit. Maybe he can become a little bit more measured in the way he chases the ball. And if he can do that, then we might actually have a little something here. But for now, I'm going to be on the fence with Danny Stutsman, I think. I think there's a little bit of a concern here of him just being kind of the big fish on a pretty bad defense. That OU defense is typically not considered to be one of the better ones. And maybe that's how he gets his numbers. But there is some stuff here that is desirable. Okay. Final guy we're going to look at in this video, the final second round prospect, is from Georgia, Jalon Walker. Jalon Walker has not played very much football in college yet. He was a part-time player the last 2 years for Georgia. Last year, 20 tackles, 5 sacks, 5.5 tackles for loss. And he plays in every game, but he just doesn't play that much. He is a reserve. He is somebody who comes off the bench on a very, very deep and very, very talented Georgia front rotation. So this is kind of his year to prove what he is, because so far most of what he's done is play edge. He's mostly been an edge rusher, and his ability on the edge is elite. He is very quick out of his stance. He's got the athletic ability to really put offensive tackles on their heels when they're trying to get in front of them. He uses his hands well to get off blockers. He's very skilled as a pass rusher. So this is another guy who, in the happy path, in the good scenario, becomes like a Micah Parsons. This is somebody who offers a lot of upside as a guy who can play stack linebacker on early downs, and then late downs, passing downs, he moves to that edge role, and he's really, really dangerous. Really hard to deal with, because he has a real set of pass rush moves. He can do counters with his hands. He can swipe through. He can do the spin move. He's got the swim move. He's got all these things that he can throw at these tackles. But he's a smooth mover. He can change direction. He has the quick twitch athletic ability to also do inside linebacker stuff as well. He's a quick accelerator. He's somebody who will chase a play down from sideline to sideline. And if he proves for that Georgia defense this year that he can handle stack linebacker, you are looking at another Micah Parsons type where he can do both. He's a little bit weak in the run game. He gets pushed around. And I don't know if it's going to be there or not. Again, we are talking about a guy who is going to be a little bit undersized here, realistically, which is why he offers that versatility. So you get a blocker on him cleanly in the run game, he's probably going to get pushed out of the play. He needs to develop the cerebral part of the game for stack linebacker, because he just hasn't really played it very much yet. Needs to show that he can diagnose plays and read and react properly and play in coverage this year for that Georgia defense. And he just hasn't played that much football yet. So Jalon Walker, good prospect, good talent, some really intriguing things here. But we have to ask, does he end up being a pure edge rusher? And if he does, I mean, you lose a little bit of value, right? And there are plenty of other good linebackers in this draft. There are another 3 guys that you could say would go in like a currently 3rd round projection, including a couple guys that we kept an eye on last year, Mondin and Dumas Johnson. We also have a Cody Barton's brother here, actually, Lander Barton. But that'll do it for this video. Next video, we're going to take a look at cornerbacks. I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think. More draft stuff coming soon.